This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. What if comparing car insurance rates was as easy as putting on your favorite podcast? With Progressive, it is. Just visit the Progressive website to quote with all the coverages you want. You'll see Progressive's direct rate, and then their tool will provide options from other companies, so you can compare. All you need to do is choose the rate and coverage you like. Quote today at Progressive.com to join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. Every morning, I've stopped trying to answer the question, how hot is it going to get? Because you know what? It's going to be brutal. I don't have to put a number on that.
It's hot and it feels inescapable in a way that I don't remember in recent years.
Vox's Adam Clark Estes lives in Brooklyn, like I do. He knows what I'm talking about.
There's no end to this heat wave in sight, and I feel like it's going to be September until we get a cool day again.
This heat, though, it is not just a New York thing. On Monday, more than 146 million Americans were under extreme heat advisories, watches, or warnings. The Pacific Northwest was reaching the triple digits. And then there were the places that are supposed to get hot.
Tourism is booming in Death Valley, California, despite very dangerous heat. On Saturday,
Death Valley, California, was bracing to record the highest temperature on Earth.
Extreme climates. Park rangers are warning visitors to drink plenty of water and stay on paved paths, since emergency helicopters cannot fly in temperatures above 120 degrees.
It's hot enough that odds are you are probably fighting with someone you love over how to keep cool. Is that window fan really the best we can do? Who set the thermostat to 75? Why is the window open? I brought Adam on the show because I was hoping he could help me resolve an eternal question. Just how much should I be blasting the AC right now? What is the perfect midpoint between my own comfort and an impending brownout? I was honest with him. I like it cool. Earlier this week, one of my little wall units was set to a frosty 70 degrees. What's your AC set to?
I used to set my thermostat at 72. Now I set it closer to 78.
Oh my God, when you heard I was setting it at 70, you must have thought I was a monster.
I'm not trying to judge you. Everybody's comfortable at different temperatures. And I'll be honest, I turn mine down to 70 when I sleep because science says that you sleep better when it's cooler.
Can you hear how cagey Adam's being here? Honestly, he has seen what happens to people who try to mandate some kind of universal standard when it comes to AC. A few weeks back, this tweet started making the rounds. A simple screenshot with thermostat recommendations on it. People got pissed.
It seems like about every year or so, like a local news station will pick it up and say the EPA says you should set your thermostat to 78 during the day and 82 at night when you're sleeping, which is very, very hot to sleep in.
Is there actually a federal recommended temperature we should all be setting our ACs to?
There is not.
What do you think would happen if the EPA actually did come out and say, like, it's 78 degrees, y'all, this is their recommendation here?
A civil war. We'd probably go straight to civil war if that happened.
Today on the show, it's hot, you're cranky, and let's face it, you don't want anyone telling you how to set your AC. We're going to tell you anyway. I'm Mary Harris. You're listening to What Next? Stick around. This show is brought to you by Discover. Have you heard about Doublenomics? It's okay if you haven't. It's extremely niche and practiced by Discover. Here's an example. Discover automatically doubles the cash back earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cashback Match. That means with Discover, you could turn $150 cash back into $300. It pays to discover. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
Hi, I'm Jesse Tyler Ferguson, host of the podcast Dinner's on Me. I take some of my favorite people out to dinner, including, yes, my Modern Family co-stars, like Ed O'Neill.
I had friends in organized crime.
Sofia Vergara.
Why do you want to be corruptible?
Julie Bowen.
I used to be the crier.
And Aubrey Anderson Emmons.
I was so damn bad for the middle of Miranda when I was like 8.
You can listen to Dinner's on Me wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, I want to get into how we should all be cooling ourselves down in the most ethical and economical way. But before we do that, I'm wondering if you and I can just talk about how much hotter it is this summer than in years past and what makes heat so deadly. So I guess I'll just start with that question. Like, what is it about heat that is so bad for us?
The problem when it gets too hot outside is our bodies can only take so much. And at a certain point, our internal temperatures start to rise. And that sort of starts to create problems with your system. What will happen first is heat exhaustion. And that's a condition in which you start sweating too much. Your body temperature starts rising. Your electrolytes get out of balance. And you will start feeling bad. And at that point, you need to find a place to cool down. And as soon as you're cool, you'll kind of go back to normal. You drink water. You might need to eat something with salt or sugar to balance those electrolytes out, and you'll be okay. But if you stay outside or you stay in those hot temperatures, that can develop into heat stroke, which is an emergency.
Experts also say that the impact of heat can be cumulative, right? So, like, the effects of heat can build over the course of a day or days. It's not like something that hits you quickly and is gone. It's something that can build up.
Right. If you think about, maybe this is a overly simplistic analogy, but if you think about your body as like a car's engine, it is naturally running at a hot temperature. But if it gets out of balance, it can kind of cause a chain reaction, and that might happen over the course of a few minutes or, like you said, a few days.
I'm really struck by how the impacts of climate change and heat can build on each other. Like, my producer flagged how in 2021, Hurricane Ida knocked out the power for 1 million people. Many of them endured the storm and extreme heat for days without AC. And there were 14 deaths caused by that hurricane. 9 of them were heat-related. So it's like you can see the extreme weather knocks out the power. The extreme heat is then there, and people feel the consequences.
That's absolutely true. It's also true for cold. I think that we are paying a lot more attention to heat deaths now because these heat waves do feel so new and dramatic and deadly, and heat-related deaths are rising, and it's a big problem. But extreme cold is actually causing more deaths and is getting worse because of climate change too, which you wouldn't expect. You wouldn't expect that our warming world is actually going to cause more extreme cold and cause more death there too.
You know, one thing I learned from your reporting and others is that heat is not the only thing leading to heat-related deaths. Humidity is really important to how heat works and how our bodies process heat. Can you explain why?
Yes, and I'm going to use a little bit of science to explain it here. There's something called the wet bulb temperature.
Hold it, what?
The wet bulb temperature. In the 1950s, the U.S. military actually came up with a way to more accurately measure the way heat makes us feel. They called it the wet bulb global temperature. And it takes into account 4 factors: the air temperature, the humidity, radiant heat, that's like heat bouncing off of the sidewalk, for instance, and air movement or wind.
The way the military and now meteorologists go about measuring the wet bulb globe temperature is often described as reading a thermometer with a damp sock around it. I asked Adam to explain.
Think of an old-fashioned thermometer and has kind of a bulb on the end. That's the bulb we're talking about. And that bulb left dry can measure the dry bulb temperature, which is just the temperature of the air. And when you look online to see what the temperature is, that's really what you're seeing is the dry bulb temperature. The wet bulb temperature is if they cover that thermometer with a wet cloth and see what happens to it. It's basically simulating humidity. If the air is too humid, the air is saturated with water, it cannot pull the water off of that cloth. And if it could pull the water off of that cloth, it would cool it down and it would feel cooler.
Much the way we sweat and the sweat evaporates and it keeps us cool.
Yes, exactly. The way sweat keeps us cool, it evaporates from our skin. And when it does, it actually literally pulls heat out of our blood. Your blood collects at the surface of your skin when you get hot. That's why you look flush. And evaporating that sweat pulls the heat out and you cool down.
Yeah, I've seen like a picture of what it looks like to measure the wet bulb global temperature. It's like this device that has a bunch of different thermometers. Like one is cloaked in a wet cloth to measure wet temperature. One is like in a black globe to measure like how hot it is, like on a reflective surface. It's just this interesting device, right?
Right. And in a way, we're interesting devices as humans. We respond to all of those things in different ways. And when you're looking at the weather and you get that and you look for the feels like temperature, that's probably looking at roughly the same calculation as the wet bulb global temperature. And that's the figure you should look at.
Huh. So why did the U.S. military come up with this way of measuring temperature?
The military came up with the wet bulb global temperature as a way to try to reduce heat-related deaths in training. And it is sort of dark that we're talking about it now in relation to the entire population needing to take the same precautions.
Okay, so humidity is important. Tamping down humidity is actually part of what AC does really well, right?
It was actually part of why AC was invented back in the 19th century by a guy named Willis Carrier. He got a job. He was a young engineer, and a printmaker in Brooklyn hired him because their pages were getting wrinkled in the summer and the ink was getting smeared because the air was so humid. And they're like, Willis, what can you do about this? And he invented a machine that sucked the humidity out of the air. This printmaker's books were crisper, and that was the beginning of air conditioning as we know it. And that's also why if you walk around, you'll see the name Carrier on the side of a lot of air conditioners.
Which kind of leads us back to the question we started with, like, how should I set my AC? I sort of wonder, would you make the moral case for setting your AC at a higher temperature, given that we all rely on the same power grid right now?
I'm not sure I would call it a moral case to set your AC lower in order to do your part to help the grid stay functioning. Basically, if we all run our ACs at their highest setting or, the temperature at its lowest setting, making the ACs work harder, that puts a lot of strain on the grid. And we've seen that can cause brownouts and blackouts, meaning that other people don't have access to AC. That's bad. And, if you want to do the right thing, you would do your part not to use too much energy. But I actually think that there's a really practical reason for you not to do it, which is that you can save a lot of money just by going a degree or two warmer than what you're used to. And you won't notice the difference. Maybe you will immediately, but after a day or two, it will feel just as comfortable inside.
So if we're not wholly relying on AC, what should we be doing to stay cool?
Whatever you think about the presidential campaign circus, one thing is guaranteed. The U.S. Supreme Court is going to be absolutely central to what happens in the coming election, and they've just released a raft of decisions that reach into just about every aspect of your life, from pollution to air travel, abortion rights, gun violence, and of course, presidential immunity. I'm Dahlia Lithwick, and we just wrapped up our Opinion Palooza series on Amicus, Slate's podcast about the courts and the law, where we break down the weedy details of Supreme Court news to make it accessible to real, smart, non-lawyer people like you. It has been a truly mind-boggling 7 weeks of news from the High Court, and we want to make sure that you understand it all. All of the episodes in this series are now available, and if you become a Slate Plus subscriber, you'll get access to a whole bunch of bonus episodes too, like The Court of King Alito, where we examine how this justice's fondness for flag-waving intersects with how he does his day job. Listen to Opinion Palooza on Amicus Now. That's AMICUS, wherever you're listening now.
Okay, so I am now officially curious about changing how I approach my air conditioning. Like a lot of people, my approach to AC is when I feel hot, I really crank the temperature down. Like, I think I have this idea in my head that if I tell the system, like, 60 degrees, the AC unit will really chill things out fast. Part of what I learned from your reporting is, like, that's not how an AC system works. Can you explain? Because I think a lot of people have this confusion.
It would be great that if there were like a turbo mode for AC, if you're really hot and you want to cool down right away, that would be cool. But the laws of thermodynamics just don't allow for that. Your air conditioner is designed to pull in and cool down so much air at once. It can't pull in all the air in your room, no matter where you set that thermostat. What that thermostat is doing is saying when the air in the room goes above this temperature, start cooling again. But turning that number down doesn't actually speed up the air conditioner in any way. An AC can only cool down the air by taking in and cooling down as much air as it can. It can't suck in all the air in the room. It just has a limit to the amount of air that it can take in and cool down at once. And the bigger the room is, the longer it might take to cool everything down.
You interviewed a whole lot of experts to try to determine the magic number, is I guess what I'd say, for AC units. Were they even, like, fans of air conditioning? What did you learn from them that surprised you?
Well, it's funny that you use the word fans. The experts I talked to, and this really surprised me, had a lot to say about really old-fashioned ways of staying cool.
You mean like fans?
Fans is one, like electric fans, or even like actual really old-timey fans that you wave in front of your face. If you can get air moving, you can get that sweat to evaporate faster off your skin and you can cool down.
Hold it. They were like, fold up a piece of paper and wave it at yourself.
Well, I mean, yeah, they said that would work, but, you know, let's be honest, electric fans work better.
Yes.
And they use way less energy than an air conditioner. Another way to, again, evaporate sweat, wear loose-fitting clothing. There are reasons in historically warmer parts of the world, the dress tends to be looser-fitting clothing. That's because it moves air around your skin and evaporates your sweat faster. If you wear tight-fitting clothing, it just kind of clings to your skin and makes it harder for sweat to evaporate. So wear a nice linen shirt.
Okay, so tip number 1, go full Eileen Fisher. Tip number 2, get a fan.
Yeah.
But what do they say about AC? Do they use AC?
I think everybody who can uses AC. We kind of need all the tools in the toolbox. But what experts told me is that in order to conserve energy and make your AC work as well as it can, kind of like to optimize the way that it's helping you stay cool, you should use these other tools. You should use electric fans while you're using the AC because it will keep air moving. Ceiling fans can be really great, even better than just like a floor fan because they actually pull hot air up. And looser fitting clothing helps. And another thing that people don't even think about is just stay away from the sun. If you have a house that has windows that face the south or east in the morning or the west in the afternoon, direct sunlight's going to come in your windows and heat up your house. If you can close the curtains, depending on the time of day, to keep that direct sunlight out of your house will stay cooler.
Yeah, I have to say, like, I think I would have doubted this advice even just a few weeks ago, but I had the experience of an AC unit breaking down in a kid's room in June, and I shoved a box fan in her window, and it kind of worked in the evening. It, like, it kind of did what it needed to do, and she was able to sleep there, and it was fine. And I was surprised by how well it worked.
That brings up another idea, which is that it does cool down in the evening, and if it makes sense, you can open your windows and kind of let your house air out at night so that it's cooler before the sun starts heating it back up in the morning.
So how do you cool your apartment now? Like, have you totally changed your approach after this reporting?
I haven't radically changed my approach since the reporting. Well, with the exception that I no longer put my AC unit at 72. I'm going and I'm moving that thermostat a lot more often than I used to. I now keep it, like I said before, around 77 or 78. And I have started taking the curtain tip seriously because my apartment is on the southeast side of the building. And in the morning, the direct sun is really intense. And I have blackout shades because I have a baby, and I actually just keep those down until the sun goes overhead. And I found that keeps the whole place more comfortable. And I'm eager to see what happens to my next utility bill, because I started doing this in mid to late June, and I'll see if it does make a difference on my next Con Ed bill.
How long did it take you and your family to adjust to a little less AC?
Honestly, I'm not sure anybody but me noticed, because I was the one who changed the numbers. I was the one who adjusted the thermostat.
You did an experiment on your family.
Well, my wife is a journalist too, and we kind of talk about our stories when we're reporting them. So I think she had an idea of what was going on. So it wasn't a total sneak. Because we have a young baby, we do have thermometers in every room. So I'm always keeping an eye on those numbers. And they're higher than they were during the day, but it's still comfortable. I'm surprised that I feel comfortable at 77, whereas before that would be an emergency for me to go get it back down to 72. But then again, maybe I'm just an anxious dad and trying to pay too much attention to the temperature of room should be with young babies.
I can sense you being really careful in this conversation to avoid being prescriptive about temperatures and exactly what people should be doing. You're I'm just speaking about my experience here. Why is that?
First and foremost, I think that climate change in general and talking about things like setting your AC has a charged nature that maybe it didn't have 10 years ago. Some people believe more in what we should be doing to do our part to save energy and fight climate change. There's probably some of that in my attitude about this, but actually it's mostly because the science doesn't support a single setting for any given person. Everybody experiences temperature differently. That's just based on our physiology. We're all built differently. We have different metabolisms which regulate our body's temperature. So if 78 feels good to me, there's a good chance that might feel really hot to someone else. And so I don't want to try to tell people what to do when I can't be in their shoes and feel the world the way that they do.
I'm curious, since your article came out, it was titled something like "Stop Setting Your Thermostat to 72." It was pretty direct. What's the response been? Have you heard from readers? Or even friends or family?
I've gotten quite a few emails from readers, which to my surprise have been very encouraging. A lot of people were like, thanks, I've been trying to tell my family to do this for ages and no one will listen. I really think you explained it well. And I'm not trying to sing my own praises there, but I thought that I would get more negative feedback from people. I did get a little bit, but my editors and I decided to go with that strong imperative headline for a reason. In part, I think a lot of people have habits or an idea of what a perfect temperature for an air conditioner might be. And I think to kind of shake people a little bit to step back and reconsider why they're doing what they're doing or how they're doing it when it comes to cooling their home. Frankly, in uncharted climate, it's important to sound the alarm a little bit.
Adam, thanks for joining the show. I'm really grateful for your time and your reporting.
Thanks for having me.
Adam Clark Estes is a senior technology correspondent over at Vox. All right, that's the show. If you're a fan of what we're doing here at What Next, the best way to support our work is to join our membership program, Slate Plus. Go on over to slate.com/whatnextplus to find out how. What Next is produced by Paige Osburn, Elena Schwartz, Rob Gunther, Anna Phillips, and Madeline Ducharme. We are led by Alicia Montgomery with a little boost from Susan Matthews. Ben Richmond is the Senior Director of Podcast Operations here at Slate. And I'm Mary Harris. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you back here next time.